Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome to our third Rural Support and Wellbeing webinar, which is being held as part of the Future Farm Resilience programme. I'm Nikki Rattenbury, a Trading Standards Officer for Heart of the Southwest Trading Standards, and we are hosting the webinar this evening. Just to start the evening off, I've just got a couple of housekeeping things to mention. Firstly, I'm sure all of you are aware on how to facilitate Teams these days, as we seem to be doing that more and more. But if anyone would like to speak or pip in while the presentations are on, please feel free. You'll just need to unmute yourself, and it just shows you there where the button is, just to press unmute. There's also a Q&A or chat function, which myself and my colleague Sam will be looking after this evening. So we will, if you've got anything that you want to add to it, then I'll obviously find a time to raise that with the speakers. The other thing I just wanted to mention was, there's one more person I'm just going to admit. There we go. The other thing I just wanted to mention is obviously that the presentations this evening are all being recorded. So if any of you are not keen on having your names shown or anything like that, there's a slide next which just gives you the contact details for Luke and a telephone number. So if you would like us to delete your details and edit your name out of it, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, so I won't keep talking for too long because we'll get straight on to our presenters. But tonight's guest speakers are Dee Allbrook from the Step 1 charity, and she's going to speak first. We've also got Claire Searle from the Community Council for Somerset, and we've also got Martin Rich from Devon Communities Together. As I said before, we're trying to keep it as informal as possible, so please feel free to speak whenever you want to and ask questions. I'm sure the presenters are all happy to do that. That's no problem. Well, thanks ever so much for coming this evening, Dee, and I shall hand over to you.
So, hi everyone, I'm Dee, and I'm a recovery practitioner from Step 1. I, on a daily basis, am helping people with coping strategies to counter low mental health. I combine this with work effectively signposting people and work alongside 14 plus recovery practitioners covering Devon. I work on 2 teams. So one of those teams is for severe mental illness. The other is a bit more specialised. So it's people with higher levels of severe mental illness, such as bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorders, and they would tend not to be concordant with their medicines. So I have the luxury of working on 2 teams. And alongside this, I'm qualified to teach yoga, teach Pilates, and have held half a dozen park yogas this year, where about 90 attendees came along. And also on occasions, I work for the Pure Gym chain and some leisure centres. And previous to this, I worked as a health coach. So that's where my background comes from in terms of health coaching and behavioural change. And I won an award as part of the Healthy Lifestyles team. And that means to say there is a backdated archive of Pilates videos, which are free to access on Torbay Healthy Lifestyles Facebook site. They still exist. And that's quite lovely as well. So those can be watched at any time. In today's presentation, I have helped cover, I will hope to cover the salient concepts that can be introduced in the short term to reduce low mental well-being for us all. So if I can have the next slide, please. And one more clip, please. Okay, a little introduction to Step 1. Step 1 is an 85-year-old, much-loved Devon-based charity supporting people with their mental health to achieve employability, goals and live independently. Formerly known as the St. Louis Foundation and Community Care Trust, the 2 charities merged in 2015. Every year, we support up to 800 people with mental health issues and disabilities to take control of their future and fulfill their potential. Next slide, please. introducing DBT. So, DBT, or dialectal behavioural therapy, is a type of talking therapy. It is designed for people who feel emotions very intensely. It focuses on helping you change unhelpful ways of things and behaving, but it also focuses on accepting who you are at the same time. There is often homework to do from the sessions, and they have a focus on the future and the present rather than the past. So that is how they differ from counselling, traditional counselling. You might look at being more mindful, learning to deal with a crisis without harmful behaviours, learning to ask for things and say no to others, regulating your emotions, and there are often long waits for our service. So I am delighted to bring the essence of DBT to this session, as well as looking at anger, sleep, coping strategies, and goal setting today, if we've got time. Next slide, please. So, dialectal behavioural. We've just had a little bit of an introduction there, and we're now going to be introducing some of the acronyms that most popularly associated with DBT. So the word dialectic means a discussion intending to resolve differences around two seemingly opposing views and ultimately reaching an agreed truth. So these mnemonics, these acronyms, they're really useful in terms of ways you might deal with emotional dysregulation. That is something that can come about at times when we're least expecting it. So I'm going to run through some of these because Marsha Linehan originally developed them for the treatment of borderline personality disorder and now applies them across a range of challenging conditions. They look simple, they are simple, and as I explain them, you'll see why. So we'll start with accepts. So accepts, the first letter stands for activities. So engage in activities that require thought and concentration. These can be hobbies and interests, doing purposeful and meaningful activities around the home, such as cleaning and washing, playing chess, or in a lot of farming backgrounds, it could be cleaning the horses, doing the stables. These are activities that take your mind off what might be concerning you. So they're a distraction. They don't necessarily have to be physical. As I've mentioned, chess and things like that, it's mental stimulation rather than physical stimulation. And that's why it is so implementable. It could be that you've got an adult colouring book. It could be that you've got a game of chess or a load of cards. It's those kind of things that are said to really help in terms of reducing emotional dysregulation, which can crop up at times. The next one, the next letter, stands for comparing yourself. So comparing yourself to where you were 10 years ago is not entirely necessarily helpful because our bodies change physiologically, as we all know. If we did a bike ride, a massive bike ride 10 years ago, something like the Dartmoor Classic, 67 miles and 6,000 feet, and then 10 years on, we're assuming that we can do exactly the same. We're not comparing ourselves fairly, okay? How this C in accepts works is it wants you to compare yourself from the start of a brand new journey onwards. Okay, so it's as if you're opening a new page in a book, you're opening a new chapter in a story, and it's from that point onwards that you compare where you're going and where you've been. Okay, and when it comes to introducing goals from that point, they're goals based on your current ability rather than your ability 10 years ago. The other C stands for contributing. So one of the 5 pillars of better mental well-being is giving. Okay, so contributing can be in many of the people listening's skill set. Could be helping, maybe building a wall or doing some gardening to somebody else, to your neighbour, to your community, and that is said to increase that low mental well-being that we can sometimes be in, which can be a really useful thing. So those are the 2 C's and the A, and then emotions. So you trying to find new emotions. So that could be listening to music, making yourself a playlist of your favorite music, introducing a radio show, something that uplifts you. It's really simple, but these are my favorite tools and techniques to help with people when they're feeling a little bit blue or down. Okay, so the next one, pushing away. So pushing away unhelpful thoughts. If you've heard of a worry diary, sometimes people write things down on a worry diary and then write balancing things alongside it. So you've got your worries, your tensions, your strife on one half of your book, and it's a book rather than a phone because it's less of an electromagnetic signal. And then on the opposite side, you use these kind of neutralizing questions, and we have examples. And what they do is they help kind of pacify potentially some of those thoughts you're having. So you're pushing away those negative emotions. And then the last one is sensations. So sensations, ice on your skin, having an ice shower, having a favorite smell. All these things evoke things for people, and again can help stabilize our moods, which I'll talk about in a little bit, in a little while. The next one is give. So with give, whenever you find that you might be unstabilized, actually being gentle and not attacking, and it's a really hard thing to do, can actually mean to say that you neutralize the situation. We can all have hot thoughts, but smearing and judging and that side of things won't help. Interest, the I, taking an interest in somebody else's point of view and a genuine interest, and being non-judgmental, so trying to do it with open intention can be good. Validate, getting their viewpoint with words and actions, however they wish to express it. And then easy, try and keep an easy manner and smile, no matter what's going on in the world. It's like that bull in the china shop. Try and keep it easy. Now the next one, dear man, I'm whizzing through these quite quickly today, but this one's for interpersonal effectiveness and increasing in confidence. Okay, so the D in dear-man starts for describe the situation. You've got a situation, you want to be more confident about it, you want to assert yourself, so write it down first. Okay, then explain how you feel and what you want. All right, the next bit, asserting your wishes, what you want to do instead. Reinforcing the payoff. So it's about a bit of negotiation and reinforcing. So if you're doing something for somebody else, even if it's a small thing, what do you get back, and vice versa? What can that person do for you, and what can you do for that person, vice versa? A really weird one is our posture. Okay, so when we might be a bit blue, our posture can slump. It's one of the first things, and when you think about it, when your posture's slumped, your chest is caved in, you've got touch kyphosis, and yet if we open out our shoulders and appear confident, it can make all the difference in terms of being confident. And then negotiate. We can't always get what we want, but we can compromise. So that's another lovely one. Okay, and then fast. Just very quickly, be fair. Don't apologise, stick to your values, and be truthful. Okay, if we can have the next slide, please. Okay, so and another click, thank you. Finding equilibrium. Okay, so this is what I'm banging on about, and I'm sure many of you are well versed in this. The resources come from the brain gym exercises in the bottom there, and this is the Goldilocks theory, finding equilibrium. So at the top you've got hyperarousal, at the bottom you've got hypoarousal, and in the middle you've got equilibrium, harmony, or equanimity. And very often in our window of tolerance, we can be pushed to the periphery very easily. It doesn't take a lot to kind of end up getting pushed to the end of our optimum level of arousal. Okay, so certain things in a day will cause us to have stress or arousal, and they will push our arousal levels up. And at some point, we can be at that borderline, dipping into hyperarousal or hyperarousal. So the difference is, you probably already read this, but hyperarousal is about anxiety. Hypoarousal is about depression. And you can go to the Brain Gym exercises to find all of this information and more, presentations, you name it. But basically, we can forget that these kind of things on either side are useful to us. So in anxiety, we've got deep breathing, we've got mellow music, we've got cold shower, we've got vigorous movement. All those things I've mentioned, because when we don't have full access to our cortex, which enables us to challenge thoughts in a balanced way and make sensible decisions, things change and take us out of that window of tolerance towards hyperarousal. Yet if we bring in things like a scent, like gentle yoga, like vigorous movement, we can bring ourselves back into that state, into that equilibrium where we get harmony. And the same with the opposite end. We've got dancing, we've got tapping into passion, we've got breathing into your feet, grounding, all things we probably know. Or if you don't, you can go to the Brain Gym and find out a little bit more for yourselves. Okay, so next slide, please. So just going back to that previous slide, when our window of tolerance is smaller, it gets squeezed. And that's when those states either side can more easily be kind of can more easily we can more easily fall into them. And in these states, we can underestimate or overestimate our ability to cope. So self-soothing, as this next slide suggests, is another way in which we can help relieve ourselves of arousal and actually bring us back into an optimum state of arousal. And they're really simple things, which is why I like them so much. So when we're thinking we've done something really well, rather than ruin what we've done, we can actually build in things that are useful to us that are purpose driven. Okay, so here we've got using your senses. So if you've got a nice garden, it might be the smell of the roses, it might be the lavender. Your favorite place, it might be the garden sat with the bees buzzing around, along those lines. Your vision, being mindful of what's around you. Scents that evoke well-being, touching a pet or doing some stretching, yoga or dance. And if you are isolated, I mentioned earlier that I did 10 months of online Pilates videos via Facebook with Torbe Healthy Lifestyles. They're all free. So you can go back to something like that if you've got the internet and just look them up for free, and you'll have some of those options. You don't have to pay for them. So self-soothing ideas are great examples of activities that are free, low cost, that can be built in to help in terms of relieving emotional dysregulation and helping our well-being, full stop. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so the organisation I'm representing today would be Well, and over 2023 we had loads and loads of courses. So their courses are not just in person, they're also in line. And there's going to be a new cohort, hopefully, in January. I know that I've got one planned. It's a Be Well Yoga Wellbeing group, and that will be at a place called Shekinah Grow, which is acres of land where you've got polytunnels and beehives, and you can go along and do some gentle yoga and then visit Ockham Farm opposite for a cup of tea or coffee, something like that. So they're rather lovely. But as well as that, the peer support groups, they include crafting, they include kind of diversification in terms of different things that can be put on for people to bring them together, a bit like WI or something like that, where they all sit around and talk and help each other out, really help each other out. So you can go, if you just do a search for Be Well courses, step 1, they will come up with the full itinerary, and you can just see if there's anything on there that you might want to pop onto. Other ones that we've had over this year have been Decluttering the Mind, Carers Loved and Lost, Anxiety Cafe, I think that's still going, Be Well Toolbox, a men's wellbeing walk, that's still going. So there's a men's wellbeing walk, there's a talkie wellbeing walk, and we also had Pilates online as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so if anybody can hear me, what do we know about sleep? So does anybody want to give me a few suggestions? If you can click the slide one more time, please, because I think that will make it just disappear. That's it. So we might have to go to previous slides. So if anybody wants to be brave and let me know what they know about sleep, please. You'd have to put your sound on the top there if anybody's able to do that. Well, that's okay. Nikki, if you can go to previous slide, please. Great. So there are 5 stages because we're not actually unconscious. Sleep is a state of reduced awareness and responsiveness. We can respond, the brain is still responsive to a degree, and there are also various degrees of sleep. So you've got stage 1 to stage 5. Obviously, we've got the transitional stage. Then we're going into a more quicker kind of rapid brain operation. Then we've got slow wave and deep sleep. Then at stage 4, we've got the deepest phase of sleep. And then in 5, we are actually in REM light sleep and fast eye movement. The biggest thing to take away is that we all experience sleep differently, and the optimum amount is an average of 7 to 8 hours. Next slide, please. So, what are the benefits of sleep? I'm going to be brave and just put this one on. Can we have the next click, please? I'm not sure if you're able to hear me or not. So, these are some of the benefits of sleep. So, reducing fatigue, improving concentration, reducing irritability, and poor mental well-being. They're all quite commonly well known. And if we go to the next slide. There are numerous triggers to sleeplessness. And one more click, please. These are, in essence, the 3 main key areas that can trigger sleeplessness. So thoughts, we can have difficulty thinking, which can impact on the way we think. We can tend to start worrying about sleeping and thinking we must get to sleep. We think about how bad we feel in the morning if we do not sleep, and sometimes we worry about not getting to sleep in the evening before we have even got to bed, i.e. ruminating concerns or worries. So that's thoughts. The feelings might impact on us in the form of depression, more anxiety and irritability. And then in effect, we can negatively do things to help that we think will help our sleep get better, such as turning to alcohol, staying up later at night, sleeping during the day as we're tired. Next slide, please. So these are all the kind of ways that you can actually help yourself to get some sleep. These are solutions to sleep. So alcohol and caffeine, they're stimulants. If you ever wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, not knowing why, that's alcohol's, if you've had alcohol the day before, that's alcohol's impact wearing off on you. Caffeine, smoking is a stimulant. Caffeine, what people have found is if they stop having caffeinated drinks after 4 p.m, what happens is that can make a difference. Bed comfort, your mattress, your duvets, things like that, they can make a difference. And some of these, like the German supermarkets, they've got very low priced weighted blankets. They've also been said to make a difference in terms of the waiting and the heating. Your diet and exercise, both of those, if you do them very late, they might actually affect your ability to go to sleep. Diet, eating late at night, if you think about it, it sits on your tummy, and where it sits on your tummy, it's not so easily digested. Noises, make sure that you can either get your windows shut, or if you can't, you can do so in a way that actually limits noise. So those are some of the ways that we can actually help in terms of bring solutions to sleep. Next slide, please. Moving on to the next subject area. So if you can click again, please. What is it like to be angry? So this is a little case of Jim. Jim's travelling to work by bus and is jolted when the car in front stops suddenly at traffic lights. Some time goes by and the lights turn from red to green and back again, but the car in front doesn't move. Jim starts to feel tension rising and a tight feeling in his stomach. He begins to curse the driver in his mind, stupid, lazy, selfishly holding everyone up. He'll make me late. The feeling builds up and he begins to feel hot. Someone brushes against him by accident. He turns on them, swears, and pushes them away roughly. So situations like these can happen. In effect, we can have thoughts and feelings. They are similar scenarios that make you feel angry. A bit of anger is normal. However, that anger can escalate and become an obstacle to everyday operating. When it becomes a strong driver, it can break relationships, spoil work, create violence, aggression, and all these kind of negative areas in terms of the law and tension with the law. Next slide, please. The main causes of anger, can you keep, that's it, brilliant. You've got feelings, anger, agitation, irritability, restlessness, rage, and red mist. You've got thoughts, poor concentration, the mind going blank, thinking the worst of people, life seems unfair. Common thoughts, they have ruined everything. What happens to your body? So your heartbeat raises, your heartbeat pounds, it skips a beat, your stomach churns. What you do, you get snappy, irritable, hit out, get drunk, smoke, take drugs, hurt yourself. Those are worst case scenarios. Next slide, please. Controlling anger. So noticing angry thoughts can help. In effect, you can put more neutralizing thoughts alongside. Hot thoughts make you feel angry. So earlier I mentioned the worry diary, and it is worth investing in a little paper pad popped beside your bed. If you don't want anybody else to look at your notes, file a fax, lockable file a fax, and also to have them somewhere where you can get to them but not actually have to wake everybody up in the process. Unhelpful thinking styles, such as taking things personally, heightened criticism from other people, and a glance from somebody that makes you think negative thoughts, also make us more angry. If you focus on the negative, not the positive, then the person involved when meeting that threshold leads to lead when meeting that threshold can lead to anger. You can have black or white thinking, all or nothing, and life experiences or personal values mean that a person can think dealing with a situation using anger is the best way, i.e. something that's been inherited. Explosive anger, shouting, hitting, slamming, is useful. Is it useful other than to the other person exploding? Good friendships are not built on fear. Situations end with assertiveness, not out of control anger when it's a good friendship. So these are the ways, the triggers and the solutions that if we find solutions, we'll be on top of it. Next slide, please. Answers to anger. So I've got a little bit of a breathing technique, a diaphragmatic breathing technique to run through with you now. So if you want to be sitting comfortably, wherever you might be, because breathing, we breathe 22,000 times in a day. Breathing helps cell and tissue renewal and also organ health. So bringing in a little breathing technique today, completely apt as it's one of the answers to anger. Our Be Well courses will allow you to explore more techniques. So place one hand flat on your abdomen and the other hand on your chest. Breathe in gently through your nose at an even rate. Allow your abdomen to expand rather than your upper chest. And you should feel the hand on your abdomen being pushed away from your body as your abdomen rises. The other hand on your chest should remain still. Breathe out and think twice as long when you're breathing in. So for every inhale, take an additional inhale, and every exhale, take an additional exhale. As you breathe in, count to 2, and as you breathe out, count to 2. Breathe in, count to 4, but when you breathe out, don't force it. Breathe in and count silently. Breathe out slowly and evenly through your mouth, counting silently. Notice and enjoy the feeling of relaxation. So that kind of breathing technique you can do for anywhere up to 3 to 4 minutes. And you can take breathing wherever you might be, to a back room, to anywhere. It's so flexible. It helps reduce anxiety and tension. And it's just one of those ways, one of those methods that you can help calm the body. Next slide, please. Okay, so from today, the idea is that we think about setting a goal. Okay, so I've covered a bit on anger today, a bit on sleeping, and also those martial line mnemonics and breathing. So setting a goal. If I can have, oh, sorry, that's it. We're just where it is. Okay, so a goal that's meaningful to you. I wouldn't be here to impose goals on you. I'd want you to think of your goals for yourself. Those goals, what are the advantages of doing it? What are the advantages of making changes? If you've got lots of advantages for making a change and no advantages for not making it, it will be more likely to happen. So what I'd want you to do is really think hard about what are the reasons that you might want to make a change, a behaviour change, a thought change, a change in what you do to allow yourself to self-soothe occasionally in a way that's not detrimental. So keeping yourself purpose-driven in that changed path, whatever that changed path you want it to be. So is it listening to music? Is it listening to the habitat? Is it giving off your time? But make them realistic, okay? If it doesn't work out, that's fine. I, as a recovery practitioner, am never there to bully somebody or to knock them over the head if they don't do their goal, okay? So that's not the purpose of doing this, but it can be visionary. It can be where you want to be at some point, and it can be something important to you. So it could be age longevity, it could be health, it could be an achievement, whatever's important to you when you set your goal. So that is the kind of homework I'd like you to do going from today. If I can have the next slide, please. So setting a goal, Ideally, you want your goal to be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, enjoyable, and rewarded. So not everybody enjoys life, and I'm not here to enforce enjoyment on anyone. So if you do your goal, you don't have to enjoy it. That's something I've heard from a lot of people is actually that would be something that changes to the template. Making changes can be frightful at times. It doesn't matter what they are, whether they're important. People around you can make a big difference. So letting people know what kind of changes can mean that people are encouraged. If you can, set a goal in some of the subject areas that I've spoken about today, and I'll give you an example. Okay, so with the specific, it could be a generic walk. With the measurable, it could be, can you complete it? Don't make your goal unrealistic, like half a mile, can you do it? Achievable, have you previously managed to do it? Relevant, is it important? Will it lead to more? Time bound, when? What day in the week are you going to do your goal? Enjoyable, why? What are you going? Can you take notice? Will you get those endorphins? Those endorphins are naturally occurring feel-good chemicals that make us feel good about ourselves. And rewards. When it's achieved, is there anything free or low cost that you can build in to your into your life as a pat on the back, a metaphorical pat on your back? Next slide, please. And then finally, just 2 more slides to go. So this is a coaching model developed and introduced by Sir John Whitmore. It helps you to create a framework to consider questions to create a path in your journey onwards. So you've got initial goal setting using the SMARTER acronym or mnemonic just used, and that goal can be short term, medium, long term, and it often means that it's a goal connected to performance. It's objective driven. So this acronym allows you to break down all the obstacles, kind of the best outcomes for your goal, and what your situation is right now in terms of reality. Okay, I might be mismashing this, but if you look it up and then work out all these different elements in terms of your goal. So options would be alternative courses of actions. Reality could be how it affects others, what's the bottom line with it. Going back to options, you could do decisional balance work as mentioned earlier. What are the advantages of doing this versus the disadvantages? And in terms of what can be done, when, by whom, and convert the discussion either with someone or yourself, building an action plan towards the goal and the measurable successful criteria. So I hope from today that all of you will be considering a bit of a goal based on those things being discussed today. If I can have the last slide for the day from my presentation. And one more, please. One more, there we go. So step 1, we accept new referrals of people who've been on waiting lists with severe mental illness. And it doesn't have to be necessarily the kind of extreme levels on a range of mental illness. It can be depression, anxiety, it can be PTSD, CPTSD. We work with adults of all ages. Referrals would come from professionals. We don't accept self-referrals. So it would be about talking to your doctor, your mental health team, if there was anything in that you felt. But a lot of what has been mentioned today are kind of things that you can introduce regardless of whether you see myself as a recovery practitioner or any person who deals with mental health. So are there any questions to finish?
Oh, thank you, Dee. That was brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Ah,
Well, it's
that was
nice to have
really good.
started.
Yeah, that's really good. And I haven't had any questions put in the chat so far. I'm not sure
Smashing.
if anyone has anything that they wanted to comment on or ask you about. I'll just give it a couple of
I can
seconds
get
just
the
to
slide
see.
sets to everybody who's on the meeting today, so I can
Yeah,
share the slide sets so that they've got a copy of them and they can look up, Google search any of those
yeah.
things that we've been talking about.
That's amazing, thank you. And also, like I said before, this is recorded.
Oh
So
yeah,
anyone that's
absolutely.
registered with us, just because they're not on the call tonight, there's more that people that registered that the
Great.
recording will then get sent to those people,
Watch it
and
again.
also to the people, yeah, so people that are on the call today
Smashing.
or that have registered for the webinar but are not here this evening will also receive it. So
Brilliant. Well,
that's
thank you
brilliant.
very much
I
for the
just wanted to
opportunity.
say, oh no, that's fine. I just was going to say about just a reminder that you said about the free Be Well courses, and the one at Ockham Farm, is that or near to Ockham Farm? That's South Devon, isn't it? Near Paynton. Is
It
that
is,
right?
yes,
Yes. Okay,
yes.
that's fine. So do they get held all across Devon, or is that normally the
So
location?
we're rolling out what's known as Hope courses. So if you go to my-Devon Hope courses,
Yeah.
or Google search that, on the Hope courses, they do the mindfulness, the meditation, the diaphragmatic breathing. That's where the diaphragmatic breathing came from. It's just a snapshot today. Can't give you all of it. It's such a lovely course. They're free. They're 6 weeks long, and quite often people can come back and do them time and time again. You don't just have to have done one, and people make friends. People open out a little bit of things that are going on, and they cover Devon. So we're broadening through those. I would love to offer park yogas further afield, but it's a matter of just kind of them being needed by certain communities, but they are very busy. So if anyone has any ideas, you can always also put them in the chat or something like that, and I can see what can happen. But the Hope courses, 6-week courses for people with long-term conditions, they are rolling out slowly, and they are also online. All the Be Well online courses you can access provided you've got internet or Wi-Fi. So they are ones that there's an online anxiety cafe, so you can be on there. You don't have to have your camera on. You can just be on there as a being and talk, and you learn from other people. It's kind of that building of resilience around other people, that other people are in that similar situation. It might seem crazy, but they are, and that can be reassuring. So thank you for asking. Yeah, so
Oh, that's amazing.
okay.
And I don't know if anyone else did try the breathing technique, but I must admit I did while you were telling us. And it took me quite a few breathing repetitions to actually do it properly, I think. I realized I was just breathing
Yeah,
from my
it is
chest
just a snapshot.
rather, yeah,
Good. Yeah,
rather than
so
my like sort of my abdomen. So yeah,
yeah,
that I think that was definite something I
when we
noticed.
when we are a bit anxious, which I definitely am today, we have
Ah,
heightened breathing. When we're depressed, we can have very low breathing, and breathing is a sense we can have control over. So just doing something like sunrise breath, that's a good one, with the tempoed breathing, can help control our senses and reduce anxiety and tension. It's just these things we put them aside, but bringing them back again once in a while can do us a world of good.
ah, thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
I don't know if anyone has any last questions before we say goodbye. Nope, I think we're okay. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
fab.
I'll let you go
Fabulous.
because I know you've got a busy evening. So I really am grateful for you coming and speaking today, and I'll be in
That's okay.
touch. Thank you, Dee.
Smashing. Take care, everyone. Thank you for having me. Take care.
Bye
Cheerio.
bye.
Bye.
Lovely. And now if Claire is ready, we are going straight over to the Community Council for Somerset.
Hello and thank you. So my name's Claire Searle. I'm one of the locality managers at the rural charity, the Community Council for Somerset. If you can go on to the first slide, please. Okay, so who are we? We are a charity. We are a non-profit charity, and we were founded back in 1926. So we're actually close to reaching our centenary in a few years' time. We are part of a wider collective of community councils across England. And they are the Action with Communities in Rural England, which is ACRE. The oldest and founding member of the community councils in Oxford, and is now well over 100 years old. And we are the largest community council in England at this time. And we are one of the largest independent charities in Somerset. And just a little happy note there for you. The earliest history of organised community help can be traced back to Victorian boxing matches, where people would hand out food and clothes to those in need, which I don't think is something that you could imagine, but apparently they did way back then. So if you go on to the next one, please. Okay, so how we work, we cover all of Somerset, all aspects of Somerset. So that's South Somerset, which is down to Chard, Ilminster, across to Wincanton, Yeovil, and then we've got the Mendip, Glastonbury, Wells, and then we've got Taunton Dean and West Somerset, which goes all the way across to Minehead, and then up as far as Burnham-on-Sea in the Sedgemoor district. And we do sort of cover parts of Cheddar, Wells, and those areas. Our main office is in Taunton. We all work remotely from home, so including myself. So if you do hear a dog bark or a child shouting at his Xbox in a minute, there is a reason for it. It's because I work from home. And we do go out in the community quite regularly on a daily basis to go and visit clients and go to busy meetings, parish councils, and just to keep in the know of what's going on in our local area if anybody needs our support. We work closely with agencies like GP practices, social care, adult social care, parish councils, fire service, police, NHS, housing, the Job Centre Plus, Citizens Advice, and those are only a few. And we are literally opening to work with anybody and everybody that, you know, wants to help us support those individuals in the community. So other charities as well, we've been quite well known to work with. And sort of help out with. So and we also, in the Community Council for Somerset, we are obviously one main charity. We have many different services. So we have the agent service, which is what I'm here to represent today. And then we also have the carer service. And by the carer service, what we mean is the unpaid carer. And that might be individuals that actually don't think of themselves as a carer. And that includes young people that might have adults, parents that have got disabilities or problems with alcohol or drug misuse, or somebody who, say, an elder person who's looking after their husband. They wouldn't see themselves as a carer. They would see themselves as a wife or a husband, but actually to us they are a carer, and we have services for them to access to help them have their own time out, their own support back up throughout the whole of the county. And then we have Somerset Diverse Communities, and they are all over Somerset, where they support, and that could be anything with supporting families with language barriers, getting like diverse communities to come together at social events, and just supporting those individuals. And we also have what's called the Smart Communities, and they are a team that will help people with writing legal documents, finding buildings for people to use, going to support local villages with the sort of buildings there and make sure that they can continue running those buildings, whether it's for social needs. And they will go and make sure that they've got everything that they need going forward. So next one, please. I lost my train of thought there quite clearly. So what is a village agent? So this is really what I'm here to talk about. A village agent will provide confidential, practical, community-based solutions for people wherever they are in Somerset. The village agent service launched in 2012, and it's expanded up to about 60 agents in Somerset. So going back in the day, they didn't really have laptops to go out with. They didn't have many tools at all, and it's changed and evolved dramatically to what it is now. Everybody has laptops and phones and the technology they need, lone working tools to make sure all of our agents are safe, and they will go out into the community and support the local community depending on where they are. If you go on to the next one, please. Thank you. And then we have our community agents. So community agents, they work with people following a referral from adult social care. So our community agents work with more complex cases of individuals needing support, and they also provide the confidential support and practical assistance whilst also guiding individuals towards relevant agencies and service providers. They can find, apply for and secure grants for individuals to meet a wide range of issues, and examples on those, if somebody is struggling in their home and they can't afford some heating, or an oil radiator, we will get the grant for them and give them the money or order it to their address to make sure that they can be warm for the winter. That's just one of the examples. There's thousands of examples that we have clients come and needing for our support with, which I can go through in a moment as well. So you can go on to the next one, please. So other agents that we have within the charity. So we have our wonderful tenancy and homeless support agent. Currently, she's only working in the South Somerset part of the part of Somerset. Sorry. But she's soon to be expanded into the Mendip area. And she was more of a pilot project with that agent role. And actually, it's become an amazing role. And what our lovely Alex does is go out into the community, and she supports people that are struggling to maintain a tenancy. And it might be that they've not got the education on how to maintain an tenancy, or she needs to give them support with getting certain documents. So it might be that somebody has not got a birth certificate, they need a bank account, but they can't get a bank account because they don't have a birth certificate. So Alex will source that for them and help them with the finances to get those documents and things together for them to enable them to have their own tenancy and their own property. And she also sort of signpost people for any kind of debt related advice or people that are struggling financially of what support they can get out there. And she also works closely with the homelessness nursing team. And they're an amazing bunch of people who will go out to people in shop doorways that are homeless and give them medical care. And Alex works really, really closely with those. And then we have our Home First agents. So our Home First agents, they're slightly different to most village agents, and they're a lot more complex, as in they will go into the hospital environment, identify people that may be able to return home but don't have everything in place for them to be able to go home. So it might be that they need round the clock care, and that's what the Home First agent will do. They'll source that care and help that client to get home. If there's any equipment that they need at home, then they will help source those items and get those things set up for them. It's what we call bed blocking quite often when we have clients in hospital that can't get home for these purposes, and the Home First agents for those people out there that are doing their best to try and make sure that we clear those hospital beds and get those people where they should be back in their own homes. We have the community and families community agent, and they are literally quite what it said there. They go out and support whole families and make sure that they have got all their needs met. Whether it would be financial or sort of, they've been involved with social services or any of those things, agents will go and support them and listen to them and listen to what their needs are. And then we've got the refugee support agents, and they're relatively new to us at the Community Council of Somerset. They came along when the Ukrainian war started, and actually they are there mainly at the moment to support the Ukrainians that are now living in Somerset. Not permanently, because they all plan to go home. They all want to go home and see their husbands and their families. But our refugee support agents are here to help them with any kind of, jobs that they can get, helping them with finding places to live. Some of them have had the Ukrainian families come and actually live with them for a short period, so they're not sort of left homeless here in England, which has been an absolutely amazing thing, and I think a learning curve for a lot of people. If you could go on to the next one, please. So our work, who do we receive referrals from? So we receive referrals from literally anybody to a degree. So that could be the emergency services, GP practices, direct from our CCS web page, referrals page, which I will share in the chat in a minute for anybody that would like it. And then housing associations such as Allbrook that are in Somerset, and hospitals and other agencies and the community. And it could be that you've seen your neighbour struggling and your neighbour said, I need help, but I don't know what to do. And then we have that individual contact us and say, help me. And quite often we will ask the client what it is that they want, and they might just say, I need a food parcel because I have no money for food. And actually, when we go round to visit that individual in their home, you know, we are constantly monitoring risk assessment to see what needs that client might have. And it could be that a client has got something so simple that they thought they needed, but we turn up and they have no heating, no electricity, you know, and they're just too proud to say so. So it could be that a small referral for a food parcel could turn into a whole load of, you know, help that we're able to support them with, and be it new bedding, warm bedding, and those things, decluttering, finding people to declutter their properties. And we also have a really good network with the fire brigade, who will come into clients' homes and assess what needs they might have. And they do quite often give them lots of free stuff, you know, for the client. And especially with deaf clients, they'll give them vibrating fire alarms that they can put under their pillows and things like that. So it's really nice to work with them and know that we're leaving our clients, you know, in the best safety, warm, and, you know, fire prevention as possible. So yeah, who do we support? We support the financially struggling, anyone in need of home care and support, and through that we would quite often refer people to self-employed carers, or what we call in Somerset as micro providers. We'll go along and support those individuals in their homes, and it's actually the individual that majority of the time will be paying the carer or support worker to go in, unless they have benefits. They receive benefits, direct payments from the local council, and therefore that will be paid for them. But there is a criteria for all of that, and it's actually quite a good criteria. The majority of clients do get that financial help. We support people with mental health issues, and we also signpost for benefits, and that could include signposting to the Citizens Advice Bureau, and we have really good contact there for anybody that's struggling with their benefits or needs form filling doing so that they can claim set benefits. We do it with those. So we also, as previously mentioned, support carers, and that's the unpaid carers, and any elderly, any adults over 18, families and homeless people. There's not many people we don't support. If they reach out to us, you know, we sort of reach back and say, what can we do for you? And how do we support our clients? So food parcels and financial help, support with finding home support with finding local groups and social aspects. And you know, we get it quite a lot with somebody that comes to us and says, I want something to do. I've got so much time on my hands. Can you please let me know what local groups there are in my area? And then we'll get them to make contact with a village agent, and give them the right phone numbers and group of people to reach out to so that they can have a bit more fulfillment in their lives. We offer grants in time of hardship. And we support people to stay independent and safe. And we're also working to help people with fuel poverty at the moment so they can heat their homes and remain safe. If you go on to the next one, please. Thank you. So as I just mentioned, external funding. So we have the Household Support Fund, and this is designed to provide short-term urgent financial help to Somerset residents who are struggling to afford household essentials, such as buying food and paying for prepayment meters and energy bills. And we will support those individuals with an application and the process of the fund. And then once that fund is approved, it will go straight to the client's bank account. And we also have the Surviving Winter grant, and that's recently come in. It's with us every year, but it's come in recently with us, where we are able to give grants to older people living in Somerset who are unable to adequately heat their homes, and the agents are able to apply for individual surviving winter grants for those people who meet that criteria. And it's normally within a week or so once we receive that grant. It will be the agent that completes the form with the client, and then it would be myself as a manager who would approve it, and then our payment team would get that payment out to the client. And that covers all aspect of heating, gas, electric and oil, to make sure that, you know, everybody's looked after out there in the cold winter months. Next one, please. So we do support a lot of community events. We're quite a jolly lot. We like to get out there to people. We have what we call a talking cafe, and they are normally located within warm hubs throughout Somerset. So we sort of tally together, piggyback on different things going on, and we just welcome people to come in to either have a cup of tea or coffee, or to talk to us and let us know what they might need, and go from there. We always find it nice to have a friendly face in front of you, not always just on the phone. And that's one of the reasons why we have these talking cafes, and we can talk about it as an old thing-ish now, I hope. I haven't jinxed anybody. But during COVID, we had Talking Cafe Live. And so what we would do is we would have a live broadcast on Facebook once a week to everybody, to let everybody know what's happening, what support we have for them, and how they can make contact with us. And I think in one session of those, one of our agents actually taught people how to do the sock mask, which was quite amusing. But they were all really good fun. I think left a lot of smiles, which was really great. We have stalls and things at Armed Forces Day. We do go along and support those events. The flooding community engagement drop-ins. So many of you will know it's not great weather out there at the moment, but back, you know, a good few months ago, we had lots of flooding in the south of Somerset. And we had quite a few families and people become homeless because of the flooding. So we've been attending those drop-ins just to make sure that everybody in there is aware of us and what support we can offer. And it could be that we get them a whole new wardrobe through donations because they have nothing. So we're always there to support them. We have the Oval Together, which is where the diverse communities came together and put on lots of entertainment and shows for people. And then we have our Dementia Roadshow that we do every year, where we go around the localities and just connect with those people that have got dementia concerns for a loved one or maybe themselves, and just give them the education information that they might need to recognise symptoms with dementia, and who they need to contact and how to go forward in that horrible disease. And then we have a Golden Oldies event, which was more of a disco, but our agents get to go to these things and you know, connect with those local people and just make sure everybody's happy and having a good time. And then we obviously all support the North Taunton Pride. Glastonbury for us was a big one. We have volunteers every year that will go to Glastonbury and give our time to going around the site and making sure everybody's safe and sound, applying sunscreen on those festival goers, and we also get to have a nice little bit of free time when we're there, but we certainly go out there and represent the agency as best as we can. And then we also attend community fetes and shows. We go around all parts of all localities in South Somerset and Somerset, sorry, and we just join in with the fun. You know, we'll have stands and stalls on there, and we just make sure that everybody knows that we're here there and to support them and help out when they need it. So next one, please. Thank you. So where to find us? You can find us in Talking Cafes. There is a web link there. For those watching for a recording, you're not going to be able to click on it, but we can share that in a moment on the chat. And then GP practices. Pretty much all GP practices in Somerset are aware of village and community agents, and they're in constant contact with us. So they are aware of us, and we do have drop-ins situated in those GP practices where you might find us in a room or in a corner somewhere at a desk, and you can just come along and speak to one of our agents and share your concerns and needs with us. And we also have the CCS Village Agent webpage, or you can call us, which is 01823 331 222. And we have those phones manned from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We are available for the carers, the unpaid carers over the Christmas period, should they need help and support. We're also on Facebook, local adverts, and we have flyers up in the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they are very much aware of us because we do work really closely with them. Next one, please. So how can you help us do what we do? What we ask of people is you can raise awareness of who we are, what we do, share loud and proud, anything that we share on social media, any posts that we put out or request. At the moment, we're doing a knit for your neighbour in the whole of Somerset, and that is where we're asking people to knit blankets or crochet blankets, and then we're giving those out to those people in the community that come to the talking cafes, or just say that they're really cold and they don't want to put the heating on too soon, or at certain times of the day, and so we're making sure those people are nice and snug and warm by doing the knit for your neighbour. One thing we are desperate in for the charity is storage. We get so many donated items and quite often we have to decline them, because we're a charity, we don't have the money to fund our own storage, but at the moment throughout Somerset we hardly have any storage to put these donated items, and it could be electric chairs for people to be able to just sit and watch the TV in, beds, furniture, pots and pans, anything like that. Unfortunately, a lot of my agents drive around with pots and pans enclosed in their car constantly because we have nowhere to put them, but we don't want to let go of them because we know that those people out there are needing them. We ask you to speak to us if you meet someone who you may need our support. Just ask us, see if we can help. If we can't help, we will let you know who can. So every question is a valid one and valuable to us. And just give us your feedback. So if you ever, have our help or support or signpost somebody for it, please just feedback to your local area and let them know that we're out there to support everybody, no matter what at all. Next one, please. Questions, the end. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, there's nothing put in the chat, Claire, at the moment.
No.
So yeah, you got away quite lightly there. I just want to say thank you very much for coming and sharing, what's available for people in the Somerset area. I think, like you say, as much as possible, we've got a social media platform, obviously at Trading Standards, that I can by all means share with our comms team and make sure that they, they're aware of what, look out for your posts and then reshare them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. No,
because obviously as Trading Standards, we obviously are based across Devon and Somerset, so yeah, that's fine. The only thing I was just going to sort of comment on was, I know from us as Trading Standards officers sort of going out and getting people to accept the help. I don't know how you guys find whether you get a barrier to kind of, I know it's difficult for people to admit that they need that support, and whether you do have any issues with sort of barriers for that kind of stuff, really.
I mean, I'll use a fake person that I've been using for the last 2 years. We can say 90-year-old Doris was a wartime girl and has always done things her own way, and she does not want to be told what to do. However, her house is looking in disrepair and she's not keeping up with the cleaning, and so one of our agents, they are all trained and coached in speaking to these clients, and it could be actually that we don't give Doris the solution. Just by talking to her, Doris will suddenly realize what the solution is, and that's one of the really clever ways of working around things to make sure we can see that Doris's house is in disrepair, but she doesn't want to see it. But by walking around the home with her and saying, what do you think about it? What do you think about that? Doris may suddenly realize actually she does need a little bit of help. And ultimately the clients that come to us, they are our clients. We can accept referrals from family members. However, the client is the person that we're looking after, and they have to be the ultimate one that gives their consent and the direction of what they want us to do. But I would always say with the agents, we've got such a vast knowledge base of agents, over 60 agents in Somerset. They are pretty amazing at talking to people, and the client may be against everything at the beginning, but in a month's time, we'll be getting comments from them saying, "Thank you so much. You've changed my life. You've made everything wonderful." You know, so it's very much, it can be difficult, but it takes time, and those relationships are built with those clients. You know, which is the main thing for us, is that the client's left happy, feeling comfortable, and got what they need as the outcome. And they might not have realised they needed it, but it, you know, normally is what they need. So
oh,
yeah,
that's really good to hear, actually, because I know you know, we're sort of faced with that kind of thing quite often,
yeah,
and we come away sort of, you know, we can deal with certain aspects of it, but there's such a big you know, area which we know that we have to try and signpost to other people. So so knowing that you've got such a vast knowledge and
yeah,
agents with a lot of knowledge, that'll be great for us. So
yeah.
yeah, and we'll obviously always get consent, you know, from the person that we're speaking with, but or visiting, but I think, yeah, we may well, I know we've sort of referred a few people through to the village agents, so that's brilliant. Thank you.
No, thank you
um,
for having me.
no, I don't know if anyone else has any questions before we let you go, but no, I think you're
No,
okay. Lovely, Claire. I
okay.
really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again soon. But if you want to stay for obviously the rest of the evening, that would be lovely. And I know with Martin's presentation, it might sort of, the Devon and Somerset split would be quite interesting. But please don't
Yes.
feel, if you need to go, that's absolutely fine too.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Ah, thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll move straight on to Martin. Hopefully, are you there, Martin? Oh, hello. Oh, there he is. Oh, you might just need to put on your mute, turn off your mute
Right.
button. There we are. Thank you, Martin.
You can see I'm more of a field worker than a sort of. So yeah, so Devon Communities Together is Devon's equivalent of the Community Council of Somerset. We've all come out of the sort of similar stable, similar origins, and a few years ago, for our 50th anniversary, our trustees said to us, "What would you like, you know, to sort of celebrate 50 years?" And we said, "Change the name of the organisation, because we used to be called the Community Council of Devon." And whenever we went, people would just assume that we were from a local authority, and you go out to talk about some positive project that you're trying to promote, and you just got your ear bent about potholes, emptying dustbins, or planning applications. So we asked our trustees to change the name of the organisation. They came up with Devon Communities Together, and then some of us wished we hadn't asked them in the first place, because it's a bit of a mouthful, but never mind. So I'm a community projects advisor. I've got fingers in umpteen pies. I work with village halls, parish councils, emergency planning groups. I advise on sport and play, community-led planning. And during the winter months, we work with Citizens Advice to help people with energy issues. And it started out a good few years ago now, talking to people about switching suppliers. You'll remember we were all being encouraged to switch and to adopt smart meters. And it was great fun, because we were able to go out there and actually tell the truth about switching suppliers and the sort of ups and downs of smart meters, rather than sort of the propaganda that we were, you know, intended to go out. And that's sort of our theme, really, is to try and get under the headline stuff and sort of have honest conversations with people. So if we can pop the first slide up, please. Okay, so the way we work with this presentation is we use it as a sort of a discussion base for meeting with groups. So quite often we'll go out to warm hubs, to lunch clubs, WI groups and whatever, ideally trying to get as close to people who are in fuel poverty or just struggling with the cost of living as possible. You know, if we end up talking to the worried well, then we just try to use them as ambassadors to get the message out in their community. But really what we try to do is to use this as a way of getting people discussing their circumstances, sharing ideas, and sort of giving each other a bit of mutual support, and then we can identify where we need to go in and target support or guide them to other agencies that might be able to help. And what we'll also do is sit down with people and sort of talk about their personal circumstances, give one-to-one advice, and we will go into people's homes and give some specific advice about their heating, their general sort of insulation and things like that, and just the way they live their lives, and just try and give a bit of one-to-one advice. But fuel poverty, it's got an official definition which is extremely complicated. It's all related to the insulation levels of the home and your amount of disposable income and so forth. But in sort of layman's terms, fuel poverty is just where you are struggling to heat your home. And you often hear this sort of headline of, oh, it's the choice between heating and eating, but it never is. It's just a shabby compromise where you don't heat your home very well and you don't eat very well, and you just suffer as a consequence. So then if we can move on, please. Next slide. So obviously the big element in fuel poverty these days has been the massive increase in energy prices, but it always has been something that's been with us in Devon. We've had fuel poverty levels of around about 13-14% for a very long time, and now it's sort of pushing around the 20, because it's a county where wage levels are comparatively low. And we suffer from the national malaise of poorly built housing stock, unless you happen to be living in a Devon cob, which is good insulation. Most houses are poorly insulated with pretty old and decrepit heating systems that people can't afford to replace. So there are lots of elements to fuel poverty, and it's identifying those and beginning to sort of try and understand and look at people's circumstances. So somebody who's sort of recently widowed, or and her husband's sort of taken care of all the family finances for years and years, so suddenly gets into difficulties, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know where the standing orders are, all those sorts of things. And somebody will tell you that they've got they're just struggling with budgeting, and life is generally difficult. So it's sort of helping people understand the factors and identify them, and think about what being fuel poor is. We can move on then, please. So this isn't a list of things that caused by fuel poverty. It's an interchangeable mix, because not eating well has an effect on your physical health. Your physical health has an effect on your mental health, and so it goes round. So all these things are interrelated, and you don't suffer from one or the other. Several will be a feature of your life. Okay, can we go on? So used to be, when we went out to do home visits, it was fairly obvious. As we approached the house, you could sort of see that the house was in poor condition. The curtains were drawn, and somebody would come to the door wearing their outdoor clothes, and all the very obvious signs were there. What's interesting now, over the last couple of winters, is fuel poverty is penetrating. It's drawing more people in, and so people perhaps 2 or 3 years ago were living reasonably comfortably, suddenly finding themselves struggling to pay their energy bills, and with the general increase in the cost of living, pensions and low incomes aren't going and benefits aren't going as far as they should. So you can see more and more people who are actually fuel poor, but don't obviously demonstrate the signs that we've always associated with being fuel poor. Over time, they will end up in these circumstances, and part of our role is to perhaps stop that happening and arrest the decline. Next slide, please. So it's not just the old and the ill. There are so many groups that are vulnerable, and our work with different groups takes us into all sorts of areas. Interesting one we did last winter was talking to some primary school children, because they were getting the sort of the backlash of parents struggling with energy costs. They were getting bored and shouted out for leaving things on and whatever. So we just sort of sat down with them and talked through what energy saving was all about, and that was quite interesting, because in a class for the children you have quite a mix, and we had some clearly well-off families. We had others where parents were struggling, working all the hours that they possibly could. We had some Ukrainian children there, so they were adjusting to life in the UK, and their parents struggling to understand systems, and so we were to help those. And we also had children from the traveller community, again, who tend to be outside all of the established support systems, and suffer as a consequence. Move on then, please. So we all know that high energy costs are caused by the massive increases that have been as a result of Russia invading Ukraine, and other sort of global influences. But at one time we were seeing that people were being missold tariffs, and so that always took a little bit of unpicking. These days, with the majority of people on the sort of limited scheme that they're now, where the prices are held to a threshold, virtually everybody's fixed term tariffs have run out, and they're on the government sort of determined scheme. But certainly tariffs were a bit of an issue. And payment methods. So traditionally, it's always been those on pay-as-you-go meters that were paying a premium. But today, it's things have moved around, and this is sort of where the energy industry can be extremely cunning, because if they come under pressure to do something about consumers in one area, they shift their ground and sort of home in on another group to target. So if you're one of those people that still waits for the quarterly bill to come through and writes the check or goes to the post office, then you're going to be paying significantly more than somebody who has a direct debit and pays their energy bills off monthly, because if you're paying by direct debit, if you're paying through internet, then you're probably going to get as good a rate as you possibly can. If you pay by check, and then you pay a premium for that. So there are sort of lots of factors that actually influence energy costs. And it's not just what's happening in the global market, but also in people's individual circumstances. And a case I've come across several times now is somebody has a headline high figure. They're paying what seems an outrageous amount a month for their electricity, as it is in most of Devon. Most of Devon's off the gas grid, so it's just an electricity bill. And you find that in fact they're in arrears, and that arrears is being recovered through the monthly payments, which just sort of makes their total payment look pretty horrendous, and they're really struggling to pay it. So there are lots of factors that influence energy costs, other than just the basic international cost and the international forces of the energy market. If we can move on then, please. So the little sort of progression as to how to achieve energy efficiency. well, obviously reduce use, and that's what a lot of people in fuel poverty do. You know, we know that people don't turn on the heating, they minimise their cooking, and they do all sorts of things that sort of reduce the amount of energy that they're consuming. So what we try to do to them is talk to them about sensibly reducing, and perhaps sometimes rather than reduce the use, just try and use it a little bit more efficiently. So can we help them with home insulation, managing their rooms, draft proofing, things like that? You know, so you pay a lot for the energy, so look after it, don't let it escape. And then where they can, you know, those who are able to, if they can invest in energy saving, more efficient equipment, then fine. That's the sort of moving on to the higher level, being able to invest a little and achieve energy saving through more efficient appliances, better home insulation, and so forth. We can move on. Okay, so one of the things we quite often have quite a long discussion around is sort of how to keep the house warm. So what we try to say to people is, look, you need to keep a certain amount of warmth in the home, because if it goes cold, then you get condensation, and condensation, you then get mold and deterioration of the structure. You know, paint starts to peel, plaster starts to rot, and you know, there are spores gathering everywhere, and that has an influence on health. So we say to people, right, okay, you need to keep some heat in the house. Question then is how much? Well, sometimes we're able to go along with these little sort of fridge thermometers and say, here are these, have one of these, and it tells you that you need to keep your room temperature between about 18 and 22 degrees is comfortable. And even when people say, well, I feel cold at 22 degrees, well, yeah, actually physically you're not going to suffer. So, you know, for every degree above 22 degrees, you turn up the thermostat or pump out the heat, then that's costing you a fair amount of money. So just sort of think carefully. But we also say, well, other rooms, you know, keep them around about 15 degrees just to preserve the condition of the room. And also it means that when you want to heat that room, it doesn't require such a big energy boost to bring it up. So part of the discussion we have with people is just how to manage energy, and you know, what is sensible in terms of room temperatures, and how to manage heat throughout the house. Next slide, please. So lots and lots of advice on savvy energy use, and what we tend to focus on is the things that aren't going to cost you anything. So the things that you can do inexpensive and you know, help people. It's been a growth industry. You know, last year when the energy prices sort of, you know, doubled, all the papers, all the TV was absolutely full of it, and coming up with all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas of things that you should be doing. The gurus are the Energy Saving Trust, and you know, we often sort of guide people to those, or we'll take along a few slides of their tips on you know, how to keep warm in winter, how to reduce your energy consumption, and so forth. If we can move on then, please. And one where I take a step back in the presentation and lead it to those who are the experts, is, you know, the fact that the kitchen is one of the areas of highest energy consumption in the home, because you're heating it, you're cooking it, you're lighting in it. So we can have quite interesting discussions about the most effective forms of cooking, you know, and what are cost-effective menus, and how to reduce costs, and how to stop steam escaping into the house and causing condensation, and lots of ideas. And often when we're talking to groups, things generate from it. So several cases last winter, we ended up with groups of people saying, well, okay, we'll sort of share meals, or we'll cook for each other, and help each other out in that way. So a discussion around the kitchen and what goes on there and how you can save energy and general cost of living costs in one of the busiest spaces in the home can make for quite an interesting discussion. Next slide then, please. So yes, don't sit around in your shirt sleeves. If it's so hot that you don't need a pullover, then it's too hot, and you could be saving yourself some money by just wearing a few extra layers. My tip is always the cotton t-shirt under everything else. Keeps you warm, and natural fibers really good. So if you can track down some woolen socks or search the charity shops where people have been churning out their parents' home and lots of interesting clothes and materials that you've never heard of, called wool and cotton and linen and so forth, come out and provide wonderful insulation. Okay, next slide then, please. So over and above energy, probably water is one of the biggest domestic bills as well. So as a rule of thumb guidance, we'll tell people that if you've got either one person, the equivalent of one person per bedroom in the house or less, then chances are you would save some money by having a water meter rather than paying for your water and sewerage based on the rateable value of the home. So sort of rule of thumb around that, and then sort of lots and lots of topics for saving water costs and so forth. And what we would normally do at the end of a session is try and pair people up, and we get people to say, right, who they'd like to pair up with, and then we say to them, right, well, now you've identified a friend, have a bath with them. So and try and have a bit of fun with it. Okay, if we can move on. So looking at the general cost of living, just sort of getting people to think about where their money's going out, and what are the things that often catches people out over time. The various contracts that they have run out, and if they're not renewed, you get dropped back onto a base rate, and that's always significantly higher. So it's worth having a look at what you're paying in terms of all your sort of electricals, in terms of TV and phone and all the rest of it. Banking arrangements. So it's still possible to get free banking, and those who are a little bit savvy know that if they shift their bank account around every now and again, they can get an introductory handout of usually a couple £100 from various banks. So it's sort of a fairly useful way of picking up of extra cash. Which suggests to people to go through a direct debit too, because again, these are things that tend to get forgotten, and you sort of sign up for things and sign up with direct debit, and you're not really using it. And so the number of people who keep their gym subscription going in the forlorn belief that really one day they will get back to it, and they will go and get fit, but they keep on paying out fancy fees, which they're not ever going to benefit from. And they're just identifying places where people can get help. So setting up local food larders and fridges and so forth, setting up warm hubs, particularly working with village halls out in the rural communities, and some of these sort of various clubs and groups that work in our coastal and market towns. So a whole range of things that we suggest to people that you need to sort of think about to try and sort of reduce your cost of living, try and save a bit of money, try and make things last a bit longer. Next slide then, please. So what we'll do is also take people through the government interventions, and probably one of the successes of this series of energy advice programs that Citizens Advice and other groups have run is that over the years we have gradually persuaded government to make more of these payments automatic rather than you have to apply for them, so that they set the threshold and then ensure that people who are entitled do get those payments rather than they have to apply. So again, we can have a discussion around the various support systems that the government have in place, and people's sort of interest in the different types of payment. But fortunately, because now most of those payments are automatic, we don't have to spend a lot of time giving people advice how to claim them. So it's exceptional now that we find people who are possibly entitled to something that they're not currently getting. We move on to the next slide, please. So outside of the government support, there are lots and lots of additional sources of support. Most of them are thresholded, so certain income levels or certain levels of need before you have access to them. And it's a bit of a movable feast. And so that's why we work with Citizens Advice, where they have full-time energy advisors and debt advisors who can guide people towards these organisations, because it's very much a movable feast. These schemes come and go. So some appear with some funding for a period of time and then disappear, and it's a full-time occupation, really, keeping up to speed with what is available and guiding people towards the appropriate support that they can get. Okay, if we can move on. So people who are struggling with their energy bills, if they're struggling with their energy bills, they're probably struggling with a lot of other things as well. And yes, you do need to contact your energy supplier, and we see the adverts where they're all lovely and smiley, and yes, we're here to help, and don't worry about your debt, we'll help you sort it out. But actually, they're pretty ruthless. They'll try and make sure that they can sign you up for a payment plan, or they get the maximum amount that they can, and the fact that you've got you just transfer the debt from your energy bill to something else, just compounds the angst that people have. So what we advise them to do is to go and talk to Citizens Advice, go and get some sort of debt advice, and get somebody to help them sort of negotiate with all the organisations that they have potentially have debts with, or help them with budgeting so that that they can try and ensure that they stay out of debt if possible, or can sensibly pay off debts without actually making their life a total misery. If we move on then, please. Something we encourage organisations to do, communities to do, is to get people signed up to the Priority Services Register. And it's not just old people this is for. If you remember that slide earlier on that I had about who is affected by fuel poverty, then most of the people on there would be eligible to join the Priority Services Register. And all the utilities run this sort of service, and so it means you can get prior warning if there's going to be a planned disconnection. It means you can get large print or braille bills if that's required. You can nominate somebody to manage an account on your behalf. Lots of benefits. And so we can sort of sit around with people and talk about the things that they might get out of a Priority Services Register, and then say to sort of the organisers or perhaps community leaders, well, why don't you do a bit of an exercise and try and get as many people as possible signed up onto the various Priority Services Registers that are open to them. And so that helps in place and there for when it's needed. And one of the examples that we're able to give is a gentleman who was living at home for his last few weeks of life, had a home support package which included pumps and an air mattress and various things. And just up the road, somebody stuck a JCB through the electricity cable, and within a matter of half an hour, there was a generator on site and a group of technicians coming into the house to sort of make sure that everything was connected up. So an example, an extreme example of how the priority services can work, but a useful example nonetheless. Okay, let's move on again then, please. So we talk about these little beasts, the smart meters. They're the Marmite of energy. So they can be useful. They can tell you how much energy you're using, and they sort of give you a good clue as to what really makes your energy consumption spike. So when you stick on the kettle or the oven and it suddenly goes from green to red, you know what's burning the energy. But they have a bad track record, unfortunately, something which should be a force for good. There's been the sort of the technical shambles of the original smart meters not being transferable between supply companies. So on the one hand, people were being told to switch suppliers, but on the other, they were being told to have smart meters, but they couldn't then switch their smart meter across to their new supplier. So we then moved on to the second generation of smart meters, which are a bit more cute, and so they're transferable. But then we get all the nonsense of energy companies abusing them and using them to switch people with energy debt onto pay-as-you-go rather than allowing their debts build up. And then as recently as this week, and it's pretty something to watch out for in this area, because the finger has been pointed at EDF, where there's an inconsistency between smart meters, electricity meters, and their bills. So we need to try and unearth that and find out what's going on, because EDF is based in the southwest, took over the old SWEB, so it's one of the major suppliers to people in Devon. But what we try to do is say to people, well, actually smart meters can be a force for good. Stop you getting estimated bills, means you don't have to go and read a meter, tells you when you're spiking in terms of energy consumption, and you're doing a bit for helping manage the national energy load. But unfortunately, our words of encouragement tend to get drowned out every time something goes wrong, and smart meters are in the news for the wrong reasons. Okay, let's move on. So what we'll also do with people is have a bit of a discussion about green energy and the various options. So looking at sort of things that sort of were new a good few years ago, which was solar hot water, and we moved on from there. And then solar panels with people benefiting from the feed-in tariff, and that's now being sort of replaced by battery storage. Pros and cons of air source, which is sort of being one of these things that I think is in danger of being oversold. It works well when the house is designed for it around air source heating, but to modify a home to take air source means a considerable investment in insulation and modifying the heating systems and radiators and so forth. So we try to give a balanced view of air source and all the others. And perhaps somewhere down the line, electricity will come back to the fore, and perhaps as we get more and more green generation and nuclear generation, and more nationally self-sufficient, that electricity, which is a very flexible energy source, will be something that will be a bit more comfortable and a bit more affordable. But what we'll do is have a very much an open discussion around all the different sort of heating sources and what's happening in terms of boilers and modern heating controls and what's coming around the corner. So what are the technologies that are being worked on? Okay, if we can just pop on one, please. So what we'll do is say to people, right, further advice. So Cylinders Advice is the sort of the sponsoring organisation for this scheme, and they're geared up to support people. They have sort of area offices, so we tend to work through those. District councils, again, sources of information, guidance, funding, and each district council in Devon has a relationship with a local enterprise partnership, and not necessarily LEAP, but there are several others. So across those various organisations, there is sort of support for people over and above that which we can give them. Okay, can we just finish off then, please? So our final warning is just to watch out for scams, because there are lots and lots of people out there trying to cheat people out of their money, find their way into their bank accounts. And I know when the energy package was being launched last winter, we were waiting and waiting for government to tell us what measures they were going to put in place. And the idea was that they were going to sort of give the industry, as it were, a bit of an insight before they went public, but they didn't. They were so far behind, they just went public. So on the morning, I was reading up all the rules and regulations around the new support systems that are being put in place. The phone was ringing with people ringing up, offering to help me get these new government funds if I just told them the details of my bank account and all the other bits and pieces. So we try and make people aware, ask them to talk with friends and family before they get too involved in anybody who's offering them anything to do with energy. Okay, so that's a bit of a cook's tour of the sort of presentations we give, but as I said, that can be developed into quite a discussion with groups, and we're able to sort of take people off in various directions and sort of talk about whatever they want to talk about, understand their circumstances, give them personal advice, and guide them to other parties that can help them if that's what's needed. So I hope that's been a little bit of an insight. It's just one of the many things that rural community councils do. We've all got sort of energy in our repertoire somewhere or other, and that's how it works in Devon. I'm happy to sort of enter into any discussions, ask any questions if anybody's interested. I think you've all gone home.
Oh, no, thank you, Martin. That's really helpful. We had quite a lot of people register, and because we advertised that, obviously, if people want to register, but they can't make the evening, we obviously still record these and then they get sent out to them. So right. Occasionally, then they get put onto YouTube, and it sort of tallies up the views and things. So right, yeah. So just after this evening, it doesn't mean if we haven't got as many on the call, it doesn't mean that right. The information's not sort of getting out there to the wider sort of sector. So I do really appreciate you giving your time and an insight into what Devon are doing. So obviously we had the Somerset version and obviously Devon. The only thing I wanted to double check was the best way of contacting yourselves, like with the village agents and the community agents. I don't know, obviously you don't call yourselves that, but what's the best way of getting in contact with Devon?
Yeah, so it's Devon Communities Together website is the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and on there they'll have like is there a phone number, or is it normally done by sort of like a contact form?
It's the office number is 01392 248 919.
Yeah,
and that's any general inquiry, and they'll get fielded by the team and they'll get pushed out to wherever's available to pick it up. So
brilliant. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so I don't know if anyone does have any questions for Martin.
It's hi, sorry, Zoe here from RABI. It wasn't a question, it was just to say thank you for your presentation, because I'm fairly new to my role with the RABI, and it's really interesting to hear about everything that's going on kind of in Devon and Somerset and in the region. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Zoe. I'm really grateful to you coming along this evening, and I hope I hope it has been sort of some of the information you've had from both counties will help you sort of when you're doing your sort of active signposting, if it'll work both ways, hopefully.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's been really interesting. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Okay, Martin. Well, if nobody
Okay.
else has any.
So how many people were signed up? So, you know, how many
So
people
it was up to, I think it was nearly 20 people.
was it? Okay. So
Yes.
I'd like to keep a you know, rough idea of what our reach has been on each
Yeah,
event.
so
Yeah,
and it's also it's a mixture of farmers and obviously, like Zoe, other agencies, other trading standards officers. So we get quite a wide you know, variety of people that sign up to them. And then like I said, they obviously, it gets edited down, the recording, and then it gets you know, sent out to the people that registered but couldn't make it on the night. Also the people that came for the evening, they'll get the recording so they can watch back the presentations, that kind of thing. And we did a series of these a couple of years ago when we had COVID, and they were super popular then. We I think our best one, Sam, was about 100, I think, if I remember rightly. And but actually, I think it was quite a new thing then, and people were sort of stuck at home.
That's right.
You know, there was kind of, you know, that sort of entity. But so obviously now I think with Teams and, you know, Zoom and a lot of things now, it's not quite the same. And obviously we're doing this as part of the Future Farm Resilience project as well. So we're sort of trying to reach out to members of that, but also encourage new members. And they wanted to cover sort of rural support and wellbeing as part of that. And so this tonight has been, you know, it's been really, really good, and hopefully we can spread the word for both Devon and Somerset about all of the different projects that you have running. So it's been brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Right.
Lovely. Well, yeah, I'll let you go, Martin, as it's we're getting close to 8 o'clock, and you so Zoe, just really for your benefit, if you're still there, this is sort of a bit this is sort of a bit about the Future Farm Resilience. I don't know how much you as RABI know about it in your new role, but obviously if this is going to replace the single farm payment, and this is where you can sort of advise farmers to go to speak to agricultural advisors about the different things that they can sign up for. So there's a website at the Business Information Point website, and on there there's they'll talk about sort of signing up with Future Farm Resilience, and then there's access to lots of workshops, support one-to-one as well as in group seminars and things like that. And it's all about sort of the different funding that's available, because there's so much of it and so many routes to receiving the funding that it's a minefield, and actually it's not as simple as it was for farmers before. But our biggest worry, I think, is that farmer that's not tiny but not huge either, and they're kind of working all hours and not really going to ever have time to kind of reach out for this. So yeah, by all means, we can forward you some leaflets and different things if it would be relevant. And when we start going out and about to some more events and things, then obviously we'll invite you along, Zoe, and you can
that'd be great.
you'll be welcome to be part of it all if you'd like to. I know Colin used to come along and joined us at some of the agricultural shows in the summer, and we invite him to join us at the webinars and things. So if you're free one evening, we've got a few more webinars coming, so you'd be welcome to speak at one of them if you'd like to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, more than happy to speak at any of them.
So the next one we've got is obviously going to be the 4th of January, and we've got it surrounding farm safety. We did one back along about farm safety, so I think we're going to sort of stick with that kind of theme, and then also there's a finance and technology one in February and March. So I don't know, as being RABI, whether you'd be free for the 1st or the 7th, but if you are, just let us know. I know you're in contact with Luke as well, so please feel free to say. It'll be the same time, and it's always the first Thursday of every month. But I know as a department, we'd be really it'd be really grateful if you'd be up for speaking as well.
Yeah, of course. No, it would be great to talk about RABI and everything we offer as well. Yeah, always keen to spread to let everyone know what we do, because I think found out that incredible charity, but it's just about getting the word out there of everything that we offer at the moment. So yeah,
Absolutely.
more than happy. more than
Oh,
happy
and if we
to
can
talk.
help with that at all, then I know I've referred via yourselves a couple of farms that I've done, and
Yeah.
they there was some farm secretarial support that was got for a couple of farmers, so it's been amazing. So I know we whatever we can do to help, we certainly will.
Okay. Yeah. No. Great. Amazing. Yeah. No. I'm
Excellent.
happy to talk.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thanks ever so much, Zoe, and thanks to everybody for coming along this evening.